We are now in our wonderful 60s, the 60s sessions, where we're going to be doing a little bit more about change and sowing seeds, which sounds very kind of hippy dippy to a certain extent, but at the same time, it's very important stuff. So, talking about this is going to be Jennifer. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I am Jennifer Jerkowski with My Holistic Self Counseling. I am in Canada, just outside of Ottawa, Ontario, and I am a registered psychotherapist, certified Canadian counselor, and intuitive life coach. And I work with clients to help them come through whatever it is that they're experiencing so that they can come home to their true selves.
And ably assisted by Tanis.
I'm Tanis Coughlin from the Twillo Lifestyle Community, Twillo Lifestyle Academy, and Jen and I work quite closely together. I do a lot of energy healing work, and I am a Celtic shamanic high priestess, as well as all sorts of other stuff like crystals and whatnot. I'm a galactic shaman. I work with galactic energies, and I'm also an HR consultant. And I help people to bring healing energy into their lives and their businesses.
And Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela, and I use kinesiology and coaching to help my clients feel better, be better, and do better with whatever's going on in their lives right now. I'm playing with a new tagline of facilitating change and creating calm, and that's helped by my new book, all about finding different ways of meditating that doesn't mean sitting cross-legged in a lotus position, going if that is not for you.
And it's called
Snap into calm. All about calm.
Yes. And then there's me. So I've been playing around with the taglines also, and I'm thinking that mindset methodologist possibly works for me quite well because it covers a multitude. I'm not going to go as far as say sins, but it covers a multitude. And it's all about energy, it's all about magic in a way, because the magic's in the mundane. And we very often ascribe mundane rather than look at what the little magic thing is in there. So we're going to be talking about sowing the seeds of change today, wherever you are in the time zone. And that's an interesting subject because it covers a multitude as well. Because change happens all the time. It's happening right now as we speak. Things in our bodies are changing. Our ideas are changing as we speak, as we converse, as we do anything. However, there are certain changes that sometimes we sow, we don't nurture. So let's go. Change, seeds. Angela.
I'm still a little bit on a loop of the Tears for Fears song, but sowing the seeds of love rather than sowing the seeds of change. And I think every time I've read the title, that's what's been going through my head. But I think it's an interesting one that, and I think I've mentioned it before. I used to work in a change profession, so I was part of a change team, and we went about delivering change into all these different parts of the organization. However, whenever there was a change coming to our organization, the people who were the ones that were out there changing everybody else's stuff really, really struggled. And I don't know whether it was because when we were sowing the right seeds and we were doing the proper groundwork and making sure everything was ready for those changes to happen throughout the rest of the organization. And when our change came, it was just expected to get on with it and go. But I'm not sure. So I think there is that element of the preparation part for change is very crucial. We don't always give it the time and effort it probably deserves.
Yeah, a lot of people think that it's just like that and then that's it. But we do have to actually understand the drive behind it, don't we, Jennifer?
Absolutely. When we're talking about change, especially this idea of sowing the seeds of change, what comes to mind for me are the stages of change. And so we look at pre-contemplation before we're even ready to make it or even aware that there's a change that needs to happen. And then it comes into our awareness that, you know what, maybe something does have to shift. And so we start that contemplative process. But if at that point we just jump in to start throw those seeds down, well, we haven't done the preparation, right? And this idea of seeds is such a beautiful analogy because we have to work the ground first. We have to do the preparation so that when it is time to sow those seeds and actually begin to maintain them and foster growth, they're in fertile soil. And so it's important that we don't just jump into sowing the seeds and not doing all of this kind of preparation and preparatory work, as Angela was speaking too.
Yeah, timing is everything, isn't it, Dennis?
It is. And I agree with them that in an organization, you really do have to watch the timing because if there's, I mean, in our world right now, there's so much change happening. But in a workplace, like you're dealing with it's like trying to turn a large ship in a short amount of time. You can't, right? You've got to take the time to really take the time to maneuver. And that means doing like the soil, working the soil, germinating the seeds before you put them in, making sure that everything is in place and that everybody's on board. Because otherwise you get change stress in the organization, right? And that's when when you were speaking, Angela, I actually thought, I wonder if your team was actually change stressed because they had helped so many people change that they were probably in that change stress. And so the resistance to it was a little bit more difficult for them. If they were already stressed, then trying to change themselves would be more of a thing. Because it does require a lot of effort.
It's true though, isn't it, that it can be a little case of do as I say, not as I do, or it's okay, this is happening to you, but it's not happening to me.
Yeah.
When, however, even as a catalyst, something happens when they come together, they both change directions. So something is happening on either end, and it may well be that, it doesn't fit quite as well or sit quite as well with someone, we were saying earlier on, we know about changing habits like smoking, etc. Although smoking is more an addiction than just a habit. And it's got always to do with how many people are chucking seeds at you, like you got to stop this, you got to stop that, you got to change, you got to do that, you got to do this. You're gonna, you're gonna die if you don't do this, and and that can mean that there's a guilt trip going on. Ground hasn't been prepared because the person who they're chucking the seeds at is like, no, I don't think so. But I'll do it because you feel that I should. And then, one incident or two incidents will happen together and they'll start smoking again or drinking or whatever it is. And it doesn't take much to pull us back into that because people, like we say, don't realize that there's actually more work involved than just, changing your mind.
If you take that analogy of preparing the soil and everything else before you go and do something, I guess it's almost like the people that go away for these big, massive meditation conferences or motivation conferences, and everything's wonderful and it's going to be brilliant. And they've come back in their little pot and they're really nicely growing in their little pot beyond the seeds. And they go back to the garden that they've come from. And yeah, they've dug the hole to put the pot back inside it, but they didn't realize that there's roots underneath it of other things. And there's other plants coming in to choke the sunlight or whatever else. And you've got a tree above it or all these other things that wasn't expecting that plant to come back changed. And you've got that element of preparing your friends and family that things might not be the same, or making yourself a bit more robust before you plant yourself back in that garden or in that patch.
That's the ecology of it. Again, with the situation where people decide that they're going to make, and a lot of people think that it's a small thing to stop smoking. Actually, it's a big thing because all the things that are around it, like you say, Angela, with the other roots of the other trees, the other plants, that are sitting there, ecologically depending on that plant being the same place or that patch of ground just being in the same place, empty of anything else. And then somebody comes along and plants something else in it, and they're like, "What the hell? Who did
And
that?"
it doesn't have to be smoking. It could be social drinking. It could
Yes.
be going to a particular organization that actually that doesn't suit you anymore, or a particular club that you were a member of, and now you don't really want to go to that club anymore. There's so many different aspects it could be
Mm.
that it doesn't have to be just smoking. And I think personally, I think smoking is more the habit than it is the addiction. I don't think the addiction itself, I think, can clear a lot quicker. It's the habits and everything else that goes around it. It's not necessarily what's in the drug that's keeping you hooked.
Yeah, there is a social habit that goes along with it. There is a sort of, I have a drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other hand, and if I don't have them, I don't know what to do with myself, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And that is also part of the addiction because it's the crutch
Mhm.
that allows
I'm just
people to
meaning
keep doing it.
the
Yeah,
physical
the
addiction
physical
isn't.
addiction to nicotine is one thing, but the social addiction
Yeah,
Yeah.
is
and
another.
that's what I was meaning more the habits and the social
Yeah,
aspects of it.
it becomes a habit. Then habit is a sort of addictive process
Mm.
because we feel safe and secure when we habitually do things. In general, I do this way, and if I don't do it that way, then I'm not very happy. I don't feel safe. I don't feel that things are in my control, and that is part of it, isn't it, Jennifer? Control.
Absolutely. And whether it is control for ourselves or control of others, it's that same kind of idea. And to what Angela had said earlier, I remember working in addictions, and part of my role as we were getting closer to having those that we were working with go back home was actually working with the families, because the environment that these people were going to go back into, if that also hasn't changed, then all of this work, to what Angela was saying, it's not going to be received well. And we are, Leslie, to what you were saying, we are going to have a higher risk of falling back into our old patterns because that's what's expected of us within these units. And we tend, for a multitude of reasons, to perpetuate our patterns. It's hard to make change when there's an expectation of us to stay the same.
Yeah. It's very much a case of who the hell do you think you are to change and to knock everybody else's ideas of how things are happening out of whack. I mean, Tanis, energetically, you will know about that as well.
For sure. And there's also the putting up the energetic boundaries, right, around you. And then people are like bouncing up against those boundaries and they're like, what is this? This wasn't here before. And so it makes them uncomfortable because they have to change themselves. So when we change, we force change in others. And usually, they either decide to continue or they don't. And so if they don't, they're first, I think Jen and I have spoken about people getting, what do you call them? Vending machine moments.
Mhm.
You
Straight
try
up
to
behavioral
change.
science, yes.
Yeah. And they are like, no, you can't do that. And it's like a vending machine. You whack against the vending machine because it's not working, right? And so it's almost like having a little tantrum because you're not acting the same way. And then you have to decide how to deal with that. And I think sometimes people feel they get bombarded like personally, if somebody is like speaking forcefully, I can actually feel it physically with the energy and stuff like that. So you actually feel that kind of pushback
Mhm.
at a real energetic level, not just, the psychological and emotional level, but the energetic level. And so when we have pushback against new boundaries because we're changing, it's it's a challenge. And I think that's something that a lot of people rub up against when they're trying to change habits or trying to, make spiritual changes or even life changes in terms of jobs and stuff like that, right? Or I'm going to change careers. I'm going to change from this to this. Okay, so what does that mean for the rest of us? Well, I don't know, but for me, this is what it is, and these are my boundaries around it. Well, that doesn't always, fly.
No, it
And
doesn't sit well at all sometimes. I know that when I'm dealing with people on occasions and we talk about change and particularly patterns of behavior, and I say to them, you do realize that once we rewire these buttons, people are going to come along who you know very well, and they're going to be pressing the buttons they used to press and get a certain reaction. And when they don't get it, you might find it gratifying even sometimes to watch them go absolutely nuts because you're not behaving the same way that you would ordinarily. It's not a case of just, if I say this thing, you will do this or you will react this way. And then suddenly you don't. And how did that happen? What's going on here? And it
what's wrong
does
with you?
actually, yeah, what's wrong with you? Why are you not being nuts? Why are you not, going off the rails? Why are you not going and eating 15 Kit Kats and 4 cups of very strong coffee? Why are you not doing that? Because I just annoyed you. I know I just annoyed you because I pressed that button.
Can I just interject and say, please don't ever anyone let Leslie do that? Because that amount of Kit Kats and that amount of coffee.
Not a good idea.
No, you don't want to do that. I used to actually work that way because
I sensed that. I felt that was coming from a
that's
learned
experiential.
behavior.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is experiential. Yes. And at that point, of course, as long as you had 4 legs, a tail, and fur, you were fine. But if you didn't have that and you came anywhere close to pushing a button, Donald Trump had nothing on me as far as, pushing buttons was concerned. And I used to have coffee rammed into my hand as soon as I walked through the door, just to keep me on a level that they could deal.
Leslie,
Sorry?
it's not a good place to be.
Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't for a very long time. It wasn't, which is why I do what I do now.
Mhm.
Yeah. I only have I only have coffee very sparingly. I have proper coffee and it's only 1 cup. Every so often I will go as far as having a Kit Kat, but you've seen what happens with that.
And if you've not seen it, go back and watch it about 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Yes, yes, yes. Then again, every so often it's okay to go off the rails slightly. Well, at my age,
Everything
it
in
helps to pass the
moderation.
time.
Everything in moderation,
Yes,
including change.
including change. Yeah. I mean, this is it. Sowing those seeds again. Resolutions at New Year. People are coming out with 5, 6, 10, 15. I'm going to do this and then that and then this and then the other. Oh,
And by
please.
the end of the year, I'll be a totally different person.
Yeah. No. Because the end of the year comes at 12 o'clock. So,
I
so
was talking,
basically,
Jen and I often talk though about how whenever we learn something, we change.
mm,
So really, we're never the same person 2 days in a row because we learn something every day. It might be, oh, I don't want to touch the stove with my finger because it's hot. Or it could be, a deep, oh, I didn't realize I was thinking about that in that way.
mm.
In any of those changes, change who we are and how we see things. And we're our own change agents. So we tend to learn on a regular basis and change.
And we have to be self-aware to do that. We
Yes.
have to understand that we have the capacity for that because there are a lot of people who think that they are stuck on those rails and they can't get off. Doesn't matter what they do. Doesn't matter who comes into their life, who tells them this, that. They are so committed and enveloped in this armor, afraid to change because that might hurt, afraid to go there because, well, I don't know anybody there. I don't know what to do about that. And yet, as I've been known to say, we are the top of the food chain. We are there because we are adaptable, if nothing else. We can always adapt. And if we can actually allow ourselves to understand that we have a thought process that is ubiquitous and universal, there's so much more that we could achieve. But of course, if everybody was like that, they wouldn't need us.
And there's the element of, is it fear? Is it the uncertainty? Is it the someone's told you can't do this, so you just believe them? Is it that people have got, and I've come across a number of people that have come up with the, I'm too busy to do that.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't have the time to do that. I don't have the capacity to do that. I don't have the space in my life to do that. And I think for me, it always comes back to, well, what are you choosing to do instead? Because everything in life is that choice. So where are you choosing to put that energy? And how is that serving you?
Yeah, if you
But I
can
think it
choose
also,
to spend 10 minutes standing in a queue waiting for a coffee, what could you be doing while you're waiting for the coffee?
And I know we've
exactly.
talked about this before, and Angela, you've brought it up before too, but that idea that we weigh change. And so as long as the thing that we want to change is more comfortable to be in than the change itself, we're going to stay in it. And we're not in a position where we're ready to sow those seeds, right? Because we're going, okay, this for whatever reason I'm less afraid of than the change. But at some point, if we are open to becoming more aware, we are going to shift that balance. And the moment that that happens is when we actually step into, oh, there's something here that I actually want to look at. And then we can begin that process of change. But until we're there, it doesn't matter if we want something different, we're not going to take that chance. And so that's the piece that we have to look at when it comes to sowing the seeds. It's like, okay, I need to actually survey the land. What is going on here? And what
Or
is something
I'm
that
just
I
going to
can...
leave the seeds in the little bag because it's a cute little bag and it's got a nice weight to it, and I don't want to put it anywhere else. And they're my seeds, and I'm keeping them.
Mhm.
I'm liking this because I'm thinking about when you're a kid and you're on the seesaw. And if you're on your own and, you can't really do much on a seesaw by yourself, it needs a counterbalance. However, the most fun is when somebody sits on it and you go whacking straight back up again. And then you do it, and that can be an addictive thing. But going back, there's collateral damage that we don't realize is going on when we're children. Because adults are having their wounds and they're throwing their stuff around and they're doing their habitual wire pushing, button pushing, and wire crossing. But the kids are the ones who are learning, who are drinking that all in. And the tap roots, the seeds with the tap roots are going in there. And as adults, they don't even realize that that's what's happening because kids are below the radar. Oh, the kids don't know anything about that. They were asleep when that happened. Well, I'm sorry, we're not always asleep. Kids are not always asleep. They could be sitting on the bottom of the stairs, listening to everything that's going on. They could be sitting up in their beds, terrified, because they hear rowing going on. But then that becomes their zone of familiarity. And then that's what they look for when they go out making relationships. So the
Even if,
weeds grow.
and even if they don't hear it, they'll feel it in the energy.
Yeah.
So it may not be an intellectual thing for them, but they're going to feel it and they'll experience it energetically then.
Well, and you talk about sleep, right? I mean, how many people listen to like binary beats or solfeggio music or anything like that while they sleep? Well, why do we do that? Because while we're asleep, that's creator energy. That's when we're in the brainwaves that are creating things in our reality. Of course, it's still going to impact.
Yeah.
I truly believe that we could do with that being taught in primary schools.
Mhm.
Because one of the things that will happen not all the time, but one of the things that can happen is the child comes home and tells the parents about this wonderful thing that happened and they did this. And can they get some for the house, for their room at night? Then sometimes the curiosity of the parent would say, oh, maybe I'll try that. Not all the time it will happen, but it does. They even do them for dogs and cats.
Could be like my brother's kids recently. What did you do at school today? I don't know. So you need to get the right age.
Yeah. I think though it's been proven, there's been studies done on kids meditating in schools from and even preschool, going into teaching them how to trance. And I know that shamanically, Sandra Ingerman writes about teaching children to journey. And the interesting fact is that children go so fast that a journey for them only takes a couple of minutes. Whereas we would go 5 to 10 to 15 sometimes, because we are kind of looking for it, we're trying to seek for it, we're trying to look for it, we're getting into the zone, we're getting there. Kids just there because they're still open with their imagination. And I think that's part of where we can sow more seeds and help them to grow in a new way as well.
There was a quote from the Dalai Lama that came to mind as you were talking, and it said, if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we would eliminate violence from the world within 1 generation.
And as children, we don't have the filters that we have as adults. So when we do the journey work and stuff, as adults, we're filtering the information. We're trying to figure it out, which is not where that happens. That stuff. Children, they don't have the same lenses to be looking through, filters to look through.
Yeah,
we like to make it logical, don't we?
Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? Why did that happen? Oh, why don't you journey and go and ask?
But it's also that point of just be. It's so hard for so many people to just be.
It's interesting because I was thinking about that, and I've been thinking about it a lot recently, actually. When someone asks you about who you are, we say, and someone did it recently on a call, I'm a mother, a sister, a brother, a father. I'm a lawyer, a doctor. I'm a technician. I'm a road sweeper. That's what you are. That's what you do. It's not who you are.
Or what you be. We're human beings, not human doings.
Yeah, yeah. And and more like the Dalai Lama, who is more into the being rather than the doing, maybe that's where the seesaw needs to come.
Yeah.
That's a new packet of seeds.
We spend, I mean, so much of our internal value and worth gets negated because of the conditioning of the world. And so we look at it and go, well, I'm only valuable if I'm doing this, or if I'm giving that, or if I have this, or right, whatever it is that we've kind of been conditioned that this is what our value is attached to. And then that becomes where we sow all of our seeds, because we get caught up in constantly seeking that externally. But if we could make that shift again, right, that we could come back into ourselves and into understanding our innate value, then that's where we would sow our seeds, in honoring who we are and allowing ourselves to be what we are. And then it's not about all the doing.
No, that's like enforced growing, trying to put something and, grow something that should be in really lush, deep soil in something that's like gravel. Because it looks good and it shines brightly in the sun. Oh yeah, let's put it there. And then we wonder why it dies. And we keep trying to plant the same thing again, trying to make it grow. All it grows is frustration. Then anger. Then everything goes to pot. Could
Or
that be a
not.
pun or not? I was wondering on the connotations of pot there. Should I have said that? I don't know.
But it's true, right? Because then instead of going into that fertile soil, we do that. We look for a pretty pot that we can put it in, right? A little box that we can frame ourselves by that can look nice and shiny, and we can put it on the windowsill and everybody can see how good it looks, right? But we still have to do the work
Mm.
within ourselves
Yeah.
for it to grow.
It still needs water, and sometimes when it does grow, it needs to be repotted into a bigger pot. And that's like us. We grow, we have rites of passage. And in each rite of passage that we have to be repotted. But a lot of the time we're being repotted in the same soil, just more of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we only ever get the same nutrients. It's like, it's Jose Ruiz, isn't it, who talks about in his Four Agreements about the domestication of the human race and how we are culturally domesticated, which is where we start to, lock horns with other cultures because we think our culture is right. And it's the only one because it's the only one we know. Thankfully, more of us now, particularly, are going beyond our own boundaries and borders. But there's still, when you come back and you say, oh, yeah, well, I did this, try that. Ugh, no, I don't know what that is. What's that supposed to be? Don't want it. No, go away. Don't like it.
Or it's never been done that way. It's always been done this way.
Yes, yes. I mean, I used to work for someone like that. I've been standing behind this operating table for the last 25 years and I've never done it any differently. I say, oh, okay.
And how's
Yes,
that working for you?
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't really. So we had to actually replant some plants, not just seeds in that one. We had to kind of take him out squealing like the mandrakes in Harry Potter and whack him in another pot. But yeah,
That was,
sometimes change happens really fast and we have to catch up with it. And that
Mhm.
can also be where we trip up.
That's where we need to leave ourselves time to integrate those changes.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's like things like soul retrieval. We're talking about retrieving something that we lost,
Mm-hmm.
but it still takes time because we've been living so long without it that we've formed a kind of bubble, a kind of scar or a carapace around that hole. And this is coming back in at the time the same way that it left. And we have to allow that to actually find its own root system back in to where it was. Otherwise, it just go away again. And that hurts more the second time.
Integration is not always easy. That is for
No.
sure.
And that can
It's as
happen.
simple as what would happen if rather than starting to brush your teeth from one side of the mouth, you start to brush your teeth from the other side of your mouth. How long does it take to get used to putting the toothbrush in that side first and then having that feel natural to brush that side first? It's not an overnight thing, and it's a conscious thing. You've got to keep remembering, I need to put a bit of effort into this. And you will notice for a while, this doesn't feel right until eventually it does. But it's without that perseverance, without that continued effort. So whether it's a soul piece that's coming back into a space that's not quite as comfortable as it was before, or putting new idsoles in your shoes, whatever it is, you've got to get used to it.
Yeah, brushing your teeth with the other hand is also difficult. I
Yeah.
remembered that from when I broke my elbow. But
Mhm.
I had to actually learn to do things one-handed. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't advise going out and breaking something in order to figure it out. You can't just, like,
Perhaps just attempt to do the different side or swap the hand.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
This is where so often, we talk about open and curious and being able to be in that mindset of being open and curious, because then we're not necessarily in a place where we're being forced into the change, but we're able to start looking at things and going, what else is possible here? And that's it. And that can be enough, right? So what else is possible here could be something as simple as I'm going to switch hands in order to, brush my teeth or do this activity, just to be able to get out of our patterns. Right? Just to know that
Thing
we
is,
can get out of our patterns.
by doing that, though, we're also changing perspective. And it's about that awakening and of awareness as well. When we have to do something a different way, we actually have to look at it differently. We don't see it the same way because it's kind of how do I do that because this hand doesn't quite work quite as well. How do I cope with that? How do I change that? And that can need support sometimes. That can need a little bit of, yeah, you can do it. Go on, try. Think about it this way, perhaps. Or what do you feel like? How does it feel when you do that? Do
But
you like it there?
and the open and curious, I love that phrase because it's like, we put ourselves in a box, and the open and curious just does this. So you can actually peek outside the box to see what's happening. So it's just that little opening that sometimes we need to know there's something outside of our box. We get so focused on what's in the box or what's in the pot, right? We don't know that there's all these other plants or all these other beautiful opportunities out there because we can't see because we've put ourselves in a box. So it's lovely when we can start to
Yeah.
look. What else is possible?
And isn't that what the shoot is doing as it comes up through the soil? It's having a peek.
Yeah.
It's having a nosy. Which way is it going to grow? Is it going to go straight up? Is it going to go towards the sunlight? Is it going to find the sunlight? And exactly as you're saying, Tanis, it's that moment of inquisitiveness, the curiosity of what if? And it's not the whole what if of everything is going to be doom and gloom. It's the what if for the opportunities. What if things could be better? What if I could make my life look like this? What's it going to take to get there?
Mentioning the mundanity of things earlier on, I'm thinking about how we can walk along in places and we see things growing out of concrete or growing out of the side of houses. And, they started off as a teeny tiny thing and they've pushed it through. It's just pushed through. And we're standing there looking at it going, I don't like you there. But we don't think, wow, how much strength and effort did that take? And all you had was the knowledge that there was a sun up there that you needed to make you go green and to be and flower and make more of you and bring up more concrete, which is why we know that nature will always survive beyond us. And could we learn a lot from that?
Mm-hmm.
Even when we're rooted. And Sharon Blackie, one of my favourite authors at the moment, has written a book called If Women Rose Rooted. And it's about having the strength. And we're talking about change and all the rest of it. Seasons change, the plant can change with it. Still has its roots in the ground. Looks like it's dead, but it comes up again the next year and flowers perhaps even more bountifully, more beautifully, for having its little bedtime under the ground and waiting its time.
Well, and
Kindness.
you see those trees, that all of a sudden there's something in its way and it'll grow like this and go around it. And then it comes up and flourishes more, because it's adapting. It's changing to its environment. But like you say, it's rooted. So it doesn't need to falter. It just needs to adapt.
And we can shape these things as well. I mean, keeping with the analogies, look at bonsai trees. They're shaped.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at flowers that flower more than once a season because somebody's gone in and they've pruned them and they've tidied them up and they've taken the dead bits away that are no longer serving them to give the roots that little bit more boost to then send the energy where it's better used. that it will flower again, that it will grow and unfurl and get bigger and get stronger.
That's a good analogy, Angela, because it's like you have to be prepared to cut off the dead stuff that's not working. Because giving that attention and nurturing that is not going to make you bloom. It's not going to allow you, never mind make, it's not going to allow you to understand and to become the best version of yourself. It's not going to allow you to experience the warmth and joy of the beauty of everything that's around you. And we are so focused that way that we forget we're our own gardeners.
You know, you're talking about the flowers and the cutting away, and what was coming to mind is I have orchids. And until I understood them, the moment that they would die, I'd think that's it, they're dead, and I'd throw them out because I was like, well, I don't know what happened to it. And then I realized that they do that. They die and the branch dies back to the main stem, and you have to just cut that away, and then it'll grow a new branch, and then it'll flower all over again. And I think that that's also a beautiful analogy for the core of who we are. All these other things about how we show up and what we do and our jobs and our, different roles, that's going to shift and change throughout our lifetime. And there are going to be things that we do end up having to cut away and all to make room for new stuff. But that core of who we are, that groundedness in the roots, like that's what stays with us throughout. And it's okay. That can be very healthy. And we honor that by cutting away these other areas and making space for this new growth and allowing ourselves to shift and change over time.
I do like a bit of shape shifting. Because changing your mind is one thing, but if you change your thought pattern, it's amazing what can happen. And I was reminded when you were saying that about Bill Bryson's book, the sort of the history of everything. And in that book, he mentions that somebody at one point said that there was enough energy in the human brain, if it was taken out and actually used the way that it could split the earth in half. I don't know how they worked that out, but I get the idea of it. We have so much that we don't use that we fritter away on dead things, on stuff that we don't need anymore, but we're still frantically trying to save it or keep it or hold on to it.
Or keeping it alive by repeating it over and over
and over. Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes our seeds want to evolve as well. I mean, I have some plants I think are going to come up one way, and I look at them and go, what happened to you? Last year you were that color. This year, what's going on? And that's wonder to me. That is like, wow, you have a kind of human quality in that idea then, don't you? Or is it that we have a plant-like quality? Because we are more animal than anything else. And it's interesting to understand that so many of us are not rooted, and we actually do it on purpose. Because we don't want to feel tied down, or we don't want to be seen as being one thing rather than another, or that we do. We want to stay where we are, in our lane, not move around. Then we get blown and battered by the winds of life. And whether or not we break or we bend will depend on what we've done. So I'm thinking that what we have to do is choose our seeds and work our ground and understand that all the seeds that are there are not necessarily the right ones for us. And that perhaps we should do some seed sorting. And when the right seed comes along, have the conscious awareness to understand that that is the right one. And actually, we always know, because part of us always knows what it is that we need to do. Sometimes we might have to ask somebody for some help. Sometimes we might have to stop and change our location because where we are, we're not growing right. The situation, not right at all. So think about that the next time that you're having a thought about doing a same behaviour, saying the same thing, inviting the same people into your life who may be wrapped up in different paper, but actually it's the same gift inside. Grow your seeds in another place. Sow them. Find out what happens. We'll see you next time.